So the panel now is about the digitization imperative. And the first person on this panel is Mr. Harikishan Burle. I hope I pronounced your name correct, sir. Harikishan Burle is a business technology executive with over 29 years in the industry. Hari is currently Vice President of Centers of Excellence at Quest Global, an end-to-end product engineering services company. Prior to this, Hari spent 27 years at Wipro in various business and technical leadership roles. Hari is a technologist at heart and enthusiastic about how emerging technologies can be used to solve hard problems for the industry and for our customers. Hari has a master's from IIT Bombay and a bachelor's from Andhra University, Vizag, in the field of computer science and engineering. So he's a local person.
So moving on to the next panel speaker, I would request Prashant MJ to please step on the dais. Prashant is founder, CEO and CIO of two companies, Suguruha and Consultants and P-Cube Technologies. Board members of two companies, ITES and Manufacturing, XXX entrepreneur in US and in India, worked in aerospace, healthcare, ITES, BFSI and 6 other industry verticals in US, Germany and in India. He is World CIO 100 awardee and numerous other CIO awards, industry speaker and own US patent of technology. Please welcome to the panel.
Our next esteemed speaker on the panel is Kamlesh Sinha. Kamlesh Sinha is a business leader with 3 decades of diverse experience. His experience spans across diverse industry sectors, namely IT, ITES, chemical and process, pharma, lube, EPC and engineering industries. He comes with strong experience in conceptualizing, designing and implementing complex programs and initiatives both in advisory as well as internal corporate roles. In his last corporate role, he was Vice President Excellence and Transformation on Business Services side of Xerox Corporation. Kamlesh has completed his master's program in Quality Engineering, Reliability and Operations Research from Indian Statistical Institute, Kolkata, and Mechanical Engineering from NIT Rourkela.
So moving on to the next panel speaker, it is Shishupal Rathore. Shishupal Rathore is currently working as Senior Vice President, Business IT with Motilal Oswal Finance Services Limited. He is responsible for new age digital technologies, strategy, product development and implementation. Overall 21 years of experience working with different organizations, industries and geographies. Welcome to the panel, sir.
The last but not the least speaker on our panel is Dr. Raghavendra Pranesh Hunasgi, the Chief Marketing Officer of Evolutize Corp, is a global marketing and branding expert, helping Fortune 500 companies unleash the power of insight-driven marketing. Welcome, sir. A globally renowned entrepreneur, author, speaker, and a 21st century leader, an influencer whose words and work in the field of marketing and branding are helping organizations leapfrog to the next level. Raghav has advised 3 presidents and 2 prime ministers. Forbes listed him as top social media influencer. The United Nations inducted him as a digital evangelist. The Harvard Business School alumni named Digital Transformation Guru and India's leading media house Economic Times Top 100 Business Thinkers of India. Give a big round of applause to him. Over to the panelists.
Yes.
Because of the crux of time, it has been cut short to 1 hour, sir.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, sure. All right. In the meanwhile, good afternoon, everyone. Hope everybody is awake. Hope everybody had a great lunch. How was it? For me, it was irresistible. I had to moderate this, and still I could not resist having, a heavy lunch. So please bear with us. So we have an esteemed panel here. I'll just wait for the mic to come in. Yeah, I'll do. It's not working. Yeah. Hello. Yeah. All right. So as ma'am just introduced, my name is Shishpal Rathod, and I work with Motilal Oswal Financial Services in Mumbai. This is my first time in Vizag, and I'm really impressed with the overall infrastructure in the city. It definitely looks like, it feels like California of India. All right, so moving on to the topic. So our topic is more of digitization imperative. So I'm sure that you all guys would have, heard about a lot of different terminologies that is being used around. One is digitization, one is digitalization, one is digital transformation, and that itself, I thought we all are pretty curious about as to what each of these terminologies means, because each one of us may have a very different perception of the terminologies itself. So why not start, with understanding these different terminologies and, where the difference lies, where the similarities lies, and what is the overall objective and outcome of going for these initiatives. So over to you, Hari, first.
Thank you, Shishpal. Thank you for having me here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
The way I look at it, if we don't relook at every process, product, or a service that we have today or our customers have today, and reimagine that with how it will work with new technologies, then somebody else will do it. I think that's the crux of how I see digital transformation.
Yes.
I just want to give one example because Netflix was in the news the last few days. When Netflix started in '97, they wanted to disrupt movie rental industry, and they started mail order DVDs. 10 years later, they realized if they don't innovate, somebody else will take their business. They started streaming service, which I think most of us know. And when they launched streaming service, there was a lot of backlash on why the CEO was starting a streaming service while his core business was doing well. I think those are how companies have to reinvent themselves. I think they are at a point again, they have to reinvent. Thank you.
Sure. Over to Prashant.
Good afternoon, everybody. And again, very happy to be here on the ITAP. Very impressive what ITAP is doing. Now, coming to this demystifying these terminologies, very, very important. If we don't have conceptual clarity at the fundamental level, we may be going the wrong direction. So, those old days where we spend money in the corporates, drink coffee, have lunch, we have bills. We produce these bills for claiming in paper form, all right? And digitization is all about converting a manual form to a digital form where it can be stored on the computer, with an efficiency, availability and all those things. And where we are today, digitization has been the stepping stone. If we had not digitized our documents, we would have not been here today. So once you have digitized, you have the ability to take that digitized information, the documents or whatever you have, and you put it in your processes, claim process, travel process, vendor payment process, whatever you have. So from the digitization, then make your process more digital. That means it is much more faster, you have the evidence, and you have the accuracy of the data. And the next step, what happened in the industry is, not necessarily with the advent of AI, ML, even otherwise, people started becoming smarter. How can we not use this digitized digital documents and make our processes much more intelligent? Then a lot of companies started re-engineering their processes. all the organizational process could be a payment process, order to pay, HR processes and things like that, and make it more intelligent. So that's where the bit of transformation that started with the companies. And now with the ability and availability of smart algorithms of AI, ML, quite a number of things, you can much more very, very, effective, efficient, and the processes can be more of a automated and autonomous, actually. So that's where I see the transformation of a manual document to digitization, digital and digital transformation. And this digital transformation definitely produces tons of data, which we will touch upon in future.
Yeah, thank you, Prashant. Why not I come to Raghavendra, you basically, so we understand digitalization and digital transformation, but where does the real differences or the commonalities lie, and what do you think the organizations can really achieve as an objective and outcome of these initiatives?
Right. So good afternoon, everyone, and I'll like our moderator also said, it's hard to do a post-lunch session and keep people awake. So let's take a step back, right? Digital transformation, they have given beautiful definition of what it means. As an end user, what does it mean to me, right? 10 years ago, it was a household debate. In my house itself, my wife and I, we used to, juggle who will pay the electricity bill, who will pay the utility bill, who will do all these work. And for me, digital transformation is today, while we are watching a interesting series on Netflix, I get to do all of that in one app, right? So that's what an end user digital transformation is. For us, the convenience of booking a movie ticket, booking a flight ticket, booking hotel, everything with just one WeChat app, the so-called super apps, is what digital transformation is. So it is the effort, or it is a race on how we can be more evolved, more smart, and do a lot more with lot less efforts. So that is what just to summarize and put together, we are in, and we are also at a very opportune time as an IT organization or leaders of IT organization on disrupting a lot of things, right? I mean, I'm sure a lot of us are aware or have heard of what's happening with the Chat GPT, right? How do we put our dollars to work, either through automation, either through all these low code, no code platforms. So everything that kind of accelerates the automation, everything that kind of does a lot of ease, whether it is an app, whether it is an application, it's all part of this whole universe that we call digital transformation, right? I mean, I'm sure we all heard this slogan roughly 2 decades ago when people said, say no to software. When Salesforce came in, they said, software is bad. So, and that's how the whole ERP industry got disrupted. So that's in a nutshell, what we all, as leaders of the industry, would probably be wanting to do or wanting to look at in terms of impact that digital transformation can create.
Sure. Thank you, Raghavendra. Kamlesh, would you like to touch upon the outcome piece as well?
Yeah. All right. Very good afternoon to all of you. The question that our moderator has posed, digitization, digitalization, and digital transformation. So let me make it slightly more complex. Let me add one more word, automation, right? And the best part is, since I don't come from the technology side, I cannot be wrong, right? So there are other gentlemen who will anyway, kind of clarify it. I have been always on the business side. I have been always working, driving the business agenda, whether it is customer, whether it is stakeholders, or whether it is employees, right? So when I look at it, so frankly speaking, this is very confusing. I'm sure all of you agree with that, okay? So when I look from my perspective, when I look at automation, basically there is a task that human being performs, you and I perform, and that gets automated. Right? What is that we are expecting? We expect that once we automate it, it becomes faster. Hopefully, it becomes we become more efficient. This is the hypothesis. It may not be always true. At least from a user side, I can tell you, this may not be always true. Nevertheless, so this is the automation. When you get into digitization stroke digitalization, And as I said, I'm still trying to figure out what the difference is. But then it is beyond trying to automate the task that we do. That is where we try to leverage the power of computing, right? So let me give you a very simple example, right? When you are doing an invoice processing, you do it manually, you automate invoice processing, right? Now, I'm assuming that when you do a very good digitization, right, when you get into a digitization mode, you leverage the power of computing, and you know whether the system is processing an invoice, whether it is right invoice or not. You can have so many checks and balance, which may not be possible for a human being to do. When you get into digital transformation mode, basically, the word transformation is more important here, right? Now, the transformation is when you expect radically to change the business performance, when you want to, get away from the kind of model that you have and get into a very different model, and there are plenty of examples, right? So when you look at banks, all of us have banking experience. Not the entire crowd is as young as me, so I'm sure, you would have experienced, how banking used to happen, right? Now we say that the whole banking system has transformed, right? How many of you in last 3 months have gone to one of the bank branches? I'm sure none of you, right? All right, so now digital transformation, the focus is on transformation when you are looking at the business as a whole, and when you are trying to completely radically change the business with a radical improvement in the performance is where, in my opinion, digital transformation plays. Rest, of course, back to you.
Sure. Thank you, Kamlesh. Thank you very much.
If I can just add a point here, Kamlesh talked about changing business models. So when you employ digital transformation, cannot be a tweaking. It's not an incremental innovation where you collect money and where you compete and win in the this thing. There is one outcome which we are all consumers of. That outcome is hyper personalization. When we go to Amazon, go to Flipkart, when you switch on your Google map, everything is targeted at you. You are the customer. There are umpteen number of bars and algorithms working. So hyper personalization is very, very important. At the end of the day, everything boils down to that.
Sure. Thank you, Prashant. Okay, so we touched upon a lot of aspects in terms of digitization, and most of those were around, convoluting to one thing, which was around customer experience or the overall experience. Okay, so let me take digital experience here. So you talked about, Raghavendra, more of convenience. You talked about optimization, automation. So when we talk about digital experience, so how do you think digitalization overall helps in bringing those convenience, performance, optimization to the real life of the customers in the end-to-end consumer perspective? What do you think how does that impact the overall lives, and how does that overall impact the growth of the business as well?
All right, good question. The experience is a direct function of the objective, right? So we need to first look at why are we undertaking, digital transformation journey, or even digitization as an initiative in the organization, right? To me, it starts from, do you really want to change the business model, right? Do you really want to change the way you do the business, right? Starting from there, is your objective, if it is not there, if it is, you want to be reasonable with your objective at this point of time, is the objective trying to do a transformation in the core business, right? Or the third option is, are you taking part of your business and trying to do a localized transformation, whether it is the customer acquisition and experience part of it, right? Whether it is supply chain part of it, right? Whether it is the whole employee life cycle part of it, right? So what's your objective? Starting from business model to the core of the business, then comes your part of the business where you're picking up one part of the business. it may come down to a fragmented problem. You want to solve a problem, right? Now, solving the problem is maybe your, the supply chain cost is higher. You would want to see how you can actually convert this into an opportunity by bringing in the digital transformation. So, this is how the objectives, in my opinion, one should define that. What happens, to the contrary, what happens is, many a times what we have observed, and particularly, in the role of consultant, I had an opportunity to work with various kinds of organizations, professionally managed, owner managed, public sector, etc., multinationals. I have performed internal roles as well as external consultant. What I find is, the famous saying goes, confusion of aims and perfection of means is where the organizations are trapped. Right? So there would be in different corners, different kinds of initiatives. One could be as if, we will completely change the face of it. On the other hand, in some pockets, it will be we are trying to kind of solve a particular problem. Now, what happens is the experience is very defining, right? Depending on what you have undertaken. Now, since you talked about an experience, I'll give you one very live example very quickly. There was an organization which employed a IT organization to completely change their planning process, right? So what is that you expect? This is a product company in manufacturing space, have hundreds of different product mix, have mostly, let's say, 500 input items, etc., very complex. It's a process industry. Now, the planning process was completely, you call it automated, or you call it digitized, or you call it was completely digitally transformed, depending on whether you are living today or 3 years back or 5 years back, depending on where are you, right? Now, what happened when I was there, working there as a consultant, and this happened just before I got in. So I was trying to understand the experience of people. How did you, how are you finding it? Now it has been completely, digitized. They were initially they were reluctant to come out with their experience. Later on, they told that we are doing half the thing in Excel and half the thing in this application. So why are you doing this? And then they had various reasons to say that, right? What was eventually missing? It was left to right digitization, as I call it in my language. That the way the business process operates, right? What they fail to understand is planning has a certain objective function. What is that objective function? In this month, I want to meet as many orders, open orders, as we would want to. So the planning will be very different for that. You may have an objective function. We want to utilize the plant and machinery to the maximum possible, optimize that. Planning will be very different. You want to maximize your throughput in terms of the revenue throughput. Planning is going to be very different, right? So this entire digitization was left to right. It was not right to left, meaning that what as an user one would expect. So, depending on what objective you have, to what extent you really get into, are you doing a straightforward left to right, digitization, or you're really looking at from an outcome perspective? I think that's extremely important in defining the experience.
Sure. Raghavendra, would you like to share some real-time customer experience that you would have?
Yeah, sure. So I'll just extend to what he was saying, right? Spent about 5 years in Google when I was leading the digital lab for Google. This is also a program at Harvard when we were doing our MBA. It's called the, so the end experience. I mean, if I can ask everybody in the room, what is that Google, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Twitter, what are they all competing for? Any answer?
Customer attention, basically.
Attention?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are in a world, it's called attention recession world, which means every single app, every single platform wants to create an experience that you stick more to it. Do you know how does, what is the outcome that is measured in Netflix? It's not, number of hours of stream. It is not number of hours of, revenues that are made, and none of those. It's how many hours of your sleep I am able to steal, and the more successful I am. If I am able to create a hype of Pushpa, Pushpa 2, and all these movies, and instead of sleeping at 10 o'clock, if I can stretch your sleep to 2 a.m., I am successful as a company. So we are in a world where we are all dealing with user attention recession, and the whole objective of this digitization, digital transformation, digital disruption is how much of your attention span can I grab to my app, to my platform, to my application. That's what we are all in. And this cannot happen unless you create a world-class, phenomenal user experience. Today, the philosophy of most of the SaaS companies, especially in the Bay Area, is how can I build a most savvy user experience for a product and then go back and do my engineering. It's not the project engineering team leading the product. It's the customer experience team that is leading the product engineering. So in a nutshell, if I have to say, we are in all these apps, all these platforms are in a mad rush on how can I give you a wow experience at every interaction, right? And Netflix has a whole R&D on how can I better my user experience every passing day. Can I make the login better? Can I bring all the family members together? If you are watching, let's say, a lot of Rana Daggubati movies, can I tell you more about him? Can I tell that, hey, we will do a documentary about it. We want to show you some of the unshowed scenes of Bahubali. So this is all about user experience. This is all about creating end user experience where the customer sticks to the platform, the customer sticks to the app. So that's how the whole end user experience is transforming.
All right, Raghavan, thank you. I was thinking only my child seeks attention.
No, all the apps do.
All right. So now moving on to the next piece, which is more about, so the experience is the one piece, which Raghavan just mentioned about, but he also mentioned that the engineering comes next, okay? And the engineering is all about the different technologies that we have as part of it. So, Hari, would you like to start with it, basically talking about the different digital technologies that we had to the new ones, which, with the metaverses of the world and basically the blockchains. So how has this transformation happened so far? Where do you see the technology plays a key role?
So the technologies that are used for all these experiences are evolving every day, right? Every time the cloud vendors have their events, they launch hundreds of new APIs, new technologies, right? I think the best way is to try all the new technologies that are coming up. Fail fast. If you think that doesn't work for you, try something else. Because if you stick to something old, then maybe you're not exploring what's available out there, right? And then, like he mentioned, there's so many technologies that have come, right? It used to be called SMAC, then it became broadly called digital. There's so many new things coming up. I personally am very excited about 5G. Last year I was excited about metaverse, but no, not anymore. But it'll all pick up. Once 5G comes up, I think a lot of new experiences will start picking up. I just also want to talk about talent, because it's not just about technology. You need people who can actually learn those skills and implement all these experiences, right? One way is to upskill or reskill the people you have, right? And then you can use the carrot or stick approach. If you use a stick approach, people will learn and then leave your company for better salary. So better to use a carrot approach. So give people incentives to learn new things, set examples. Leaders should learn new things and then tell people why others have to learn, right? On the talent part, all the children who are born after Google was incorporated are joining the workforce, right? They are digital natives, right? They were born with phones, they were born with, maybe in schools they used iPads. Don't shy away from using such talent for your work, right? They're born digital. They don't have the inhibitions that some of us who've spent a couple of decades in the industry have, right? I'll take the example of my own son. during COVID, he was staying at home. He said, why don't you take a cloud certification? He was in summer break of his second year of engineering. He studied for 2 weeks and cracked AWS certification. You know, he may be learning a little bit of programming, but to clear those certifications, you have to understand storage, application servers, network, cybersecurity. So many things you have to learn, but children are able to learn those. Maybe some of us have inhibitions, but new generation kids do. That's one aspect of talent. The other aspect of talent is explore gig models. I spent a few years looking at how crowdsourcing models work. I was amazed at how you can find digital talent everywhere in the world, right? You can find amazing design talent from South Asia. You can find amazing algorithm developers, mathematicians in Eastern Europe, right? You'll obviously find a lot of great developers in India, right? So there is a lot of freelance talent available. I knew a designer from Visakhapatnam who freelances, who left his TCS job. Now he makes like maybe $200,000, $300,000 a year, travels around the world and works. All he needs is a coffee shop and he has his laptop. All he needs is coffee and place to sit, right? So don't be limited by the traditional talent models. Explore the new models.
Thank you, Hari. I'll come to you, Prashant. Basically with these digital technologies, a lot of these are data capturing ones, okay? And they generate a lot of tons of petabytes of data. So what is your view on how, this data could be leveraged, what technologies could be used, and how this could really help in overall business growth?
It's a lovely question. If I may wake up the audience and ask a question, what do you think is the most precious resource in the world today? We can oil, air, data, fantastic, right? So data is the most precious resource. Anything the panel talked about it, anything you're experiencing, doing in a day-to-day life is generating massive amount of data and structured, unstructured data. The companies who succeed are those just not implementing digital technologies. That's only a starting point. If you want to be really smart and take full benefit of your investment, derive business values, whatever you may have, hyper personalization, enhance productivity, cross-sell, upsell. I'm sure a lot of you are from the BPM space. These things are extremely important. Assisting agent about a customer experience management, customer journey mapping, you name it, all these themes that being dealt by the agents and anybody who's service in the service industry has to get help from the data. So it is how we harness the data. Last month I was talking about in a Dell event on the power of data. There I talked about various metaphors. I talked about data as a resource. Data can be a soil. Data can be oil. Data can be gold. Data can be oxygen. What I'm saying about this, let me start with the oxygen. Can anybody tell me how data can be oxygen? Anybody? Any takers?
Any takers from the audience, please?
Why do I call data as oxygen? How does Amazon breathes? Amazon breathes on data. If I pull the plug for Amazon on the data pipe, the company will collapse in few days because they can't deliver, the supply chain will not happen, they can't serve you, they can't communicate you, report the status of your order, your returns, you name it. Without data, they can't do it. They cannot keep selling you more and more, which is what you need, what you don't need, you may need, everything based on your browsing patterns, what products you saw, not necessarily in Amazon. It is any other platform. So Data is extremely important. So data is oxygen for many companies. Amazon is one example I gave you. So you talk about, see, what is happening is, I'm getting at a place, if you want to go back to your management and say, you know, our company has been doing business in a very traditional way. And if you want to go back and get money from a CFO or CEO, you need to have a clear story about data. How the data, you can't really have an Anuman theory. You know, I have 10 petabytes of data in data centers and cloud. I have a lot of data structured and such. Hence, I'm going to harness it. I'm going to process it. I'm going to analyze it and get insights. That is, you're going to scare it. So create storyboards. If you create storyboards over the data and communicate, then there is a clear chance of articulating business value that you are going to deliver out of data. And this business value has to align with the business objective, as Kamlesh talked about it. So if we don't have these two connected, then I will tell you, I'm sure that many companies invested in digital technologies, embraced digital transformation, has not seen business value delivered to them. So people got frustrated and they've changed technologies. You know, talking about digital technologies, while it is very, very important, that is not the starting point. You know, if I am given the responsibility to do a digital transformation to your company, I will never talk to partners, you know, resellers, technology companies, other CIOs first. I talk to my management, talk to my business stakeholders. What are your problems and how do you take it? So align with this, use the data with whatever limited technology you have. For example, we are all from BPM space. So you have heard about robotic process automation for the back office. You heard about, nuance technology, analytics, voice speech analytics, where you can deflect your call and get a self-service enabled for customers. So all these things are possible only with the data. So data is extremely critical, and those who really understand and take full advantage of data are the people who are going to win. Thank you.
All right, Prashant. Raghavendra, would you like to share some real-life examples from, how data has been leveraged by company, especially Evolutize, if you want to share?
No, at Evolutize, I think we do a clean business. But if you want to talk about billion-dollar enterprise, like you were telling, data is their oxygen. How many of us have Google account here? Gmail? Yeah, all of us? Yeah. So, by any chance, did anybody read the end user license agreement, EULA, when you say, I agree and create my Gmail account?
Yeah, I read the I agree part only.
Yeah, so we all do, right? We just say, I agree. So here is an interesting thing that I'll tell you. Don't be shocked, surprised. So I worked in Google, so now that it is not confidential, I can talk about it. Every single email that you send, every single attachment that you send, every single photo that you store in your Google Photos has three owners. There are three people who own that piece of content, that piece of data, that piece of asset. One, the guy who is sending the photograph, that is you. One, the person who is receiving the photograph, the receiver. And the third person is? Yeah. So that's what, and that's how it works, right? So tomorrow, if Google puts up my girlfriend's photo on their homepage and makes it google.com, I cannot go back and sue them because the photograph was transferred on their network. The photograph was transferred by that email. So that's how it works. So a lot of companies we talk about today, thrive on data as an economy, right? So Netflix was an example again. Amazon as an example has 64% of their R&D money pumped into data, right? So they want to build smarter algorithms on how can I make my data more meaningful. If anybody in this room has used all the Google products or most of the Google products, Google creates something called unique user identification. It doesn't tell you your first name, it doesn't tell your last name, but it tells, hey, Raghav is a person who lives in Gachibowli. He enjoys going to Starbucks at Madhapur. He drives an Audi A6. He has 6 best friends that he calls every single day, 5 times a day. He enjoys sending pictures to them via an instant messenger. He uses Google Earth and travels to Mantralayam once every quarter. He goes to Tirupati every month. All of this without revealing your data. I just have to go back and look at what is the first name, last name of the person. Boom. I have all your information. I know what do you do right from the time you wake up, the time you hold your cell phone in your hand, to the time you put it back. I'm sure a lot of us have also heard and seen these WhatsApp forwards, Facebook messages which says, Apple is secretively recording what you are doing even when the recorder is not on. It's not secretive, it is just open. I mean, this is just for them to process intelligence. How many times have we not experienced, you're talking to your son, daughter, wife, father, you're talking about, I will buy you a Dell laptop, I'll probably buy you an Apple laptop. You open a website, you see the Apple ad. You open the website, you see the Dell ad. It's not coincidence. It's no joke. They are just listening into you 24/7. I mean, we were having lunch, probably in the subsequent questions we'll answer. I personally had faced 2 lawsuits because of the data when I was running my own startups. When ma'am introduced running presidents and prime minister's election campaign, trust me, it was a nightmare, and it was all because of data, right? How do we, though we have GDPR and 100 other compliances, the usage of data will always remain gray. It will always, you have seen the, the attorneys and the judges and the panels grilling, Zuckerberg and others. How do you use your data? I pass the question. Do you record the data? I pass the question. Do you store the data? I pass the question. So, we all know what they do, right? So data is the new economy. Data is the next big thing. Gartner's prediction says by 2030, 74% of the companies that will survive on the planet are the ones which will have their primary business something to do with data. So if you are not in a data business, if your business is not impacting or creating a dent by making data as the central point, then you need to rethink, because the whole existence is questioned, just 10 years from now. That's how important data is.
Yeah, Hari wants to share some thoughts.
Just on a lighter note, the other day in the car, my wife was saying, do you want to have idli tomorrow? And then she opens Facebook and it shows idli recipe. She's like, she's a Telugu woman. She doesn't need idli recipe.
Yeah, right, yeah.
All right.
Just another point I wanted to add about data. We talk about data, a lot of data, massive tons, petabytes, zettabytes. Also very important to delete those data which you don't need. You talked about lawsuits. There are quite a number of compliance, regulatory needs, requirements. It has evolved and put in place by multiple countries. So please make sure your data, only what you need, you should keep it. There's a data lifecycle management that you need to do, and storage is not free. It is cheap, but it is not free.
All right, thank you, Prashant. So now, going to the next point, as we know, that there is a lot of benefits that comes out of the overall digital transformation. But as you mentioned, Raghav, there is also a dark side of it, and then that dark side can sometimes have some very, adverse impact, both from a reputation perspective and from an overall growth perspective. So Kamlesh, do you want to take that point, and share your insights on that dark side, especially from a cyber security, data, privacy policy? And then how could startups, the organizations manage that piece really well so that, their growth is not hampered overall?
The data security piece I will pass on to the experts, right? I just wanted to very quickly build on the last point that we were all discussing, right? Because mostly I look at it from a business point of view. And with due permission from the panel here, let's get back to our organizations, the organizations that you work, right? While, moment we talk about the data, Google comes in mind, Amazon comes in mind, right? Or for that matter, any large organization. We give examples of Walmart, etc., etc. Right, I just wanted to make a very quick point that harnessing data is extremely important, goes without saying. But in your business, how do you do that? Particularly from a BPM context, right? So, what I call it, the 3C mantra, right? Which is, you need to, in a given context, right? Bring the convergence, right? So, at the point of consumption. So, when you are doing a particular activity, whether you are doing a back office work, whether you are in a voice process, whether you are in an enabling function, whatever function you are, right? Given a context, bring the convergence at the point of consumption. And that is where you actually harness the power of data. Otherwise, the data would be very reactive. You can always look at the graphs, etc., and say we could have done better here, or going forward we will do better there. But how do you harness it in your day-to-day business is extremely important, and that's where the digital transformation has to really envisage that while we are using all great technologies, we are working on the right set of problem where the contextual convergence is happening at the point of consumption. And that is where the game changer happens, right? Now you can imagine, suppose you are in a collection process, right? How does the entire data, the analytics, the digitization effort helps me to know that the person whom I am talking to has to be given a waiver, yes or no? To what extent we have to give a waiver, right? So that is extremely important. And of course, to your question, as said,
Sure.
I give it a pass to the experts out here.
Yeah, Prashant, do you want to start, or Raghav, you want to take it first?
Talking about dark side, there are two aspects. One is the moment we talk about dark side threat, we talk about cyber security, data breach, in technology, failures, losing data and all, which is all very, very, very important. To me, dark side of digital transformation is not data security. It is the dark side is the not doing the right thing in the right way. I just want to emphasize again, many companies started the journey of digital transformation without articulating what problem they're trying to solve. We don't want to do something because my competitor is doing something. We want to do something, we have a specific identified problem with my business objective. And starting with that, stakeholder management, culture management, organization culture. If we don't take care of the organization culture, it is definitely going to fail. And the governance and all those aspects come into picture. That's very, very important. And how do you use your partner? How do you own? It is important the company we work own the entire transformation, entire implementation. Now, coming back to the generally perceived threats of cybersecurity, data breach and all. Yes, there are numerous architectures that we can employ. Now we see, gone are those days where we have the perimeter within our premises, enterprise. The perimeter is missing now. Its perimeter is your endpoint, the agent working or employee working at office or at home or IT, beach IT, whatever we are talking about in the Visakhapatnam, it's all perimeter is there. So it's very important to have the right technology stack. I don't want to get into a lot of technology now, but you need to have the right technology stack, available technology stack, for the InfoSec point of view to manage the data privacy, data confidentiality, and data availability. And these are very, very important. And you talk about cloud technologies where most of us are embraced and using various services. It is cloud service providers are not responsible for your data. We are responsible for our data security, availability, wherever it is in our premise, data center, co-location, or the cloud. So that is important. And you talked about GDPR. When you talk about data security, it is important to comply with your ISO standards, PCI DSS if you are dealing with credit cards, GDPR if access, you're handling with data of various Europe citizens. And likewise, many countries have their data security, data availability, and data management requirements.
Raka, would you like to share something?
Yeah, so I'll just start with a quick not known fact. Not here to scare you guys, but just want to tell you a fact. There is nothing called deleting from any of your so-called new age apps. You delete your Instagram picture, you delete your email, you delete your photo. The only thing that is getting deleted is the link between your inbox and the data, but the asset actually sits there. If I want to go back and retrieve your photo, we can do that. I mean, if I'm the owner of the app. So that's how it works. So be careful before you upload, because once you upload, it's done. There's no undoing of it. And like most of our Indian mythology thing says, right, with great power, there's also a darker side. So there are a lot of darker sides. All of us have used Instagram, all of us have used Facebook, all of us have used a lot of these cool apps. They ask you for a permission saying, hey, can I track you, your location, because I want to give you localized content. And you say, yes, you can track my content. The moment you say allow all the time, you are actually giving access to those platforms to do a real-time tracking. So a lot of these, I mean, there are many cases that come out, there are many that don't come out, but you can use a lot of these APIs to do a real-time track and trace of the person based on, you know, the permissions they have set on their phone. Like I was mentioning about, you know, Google, Facebook, for that matter, any of these smart, intelligent apps, with 4 fields, I can give you the complete kundali of the person from the time he created the account, right? How many of them have browsed? What kind of the, you know, browsing data do they have? Incognito is a myth. I mean, we all feel happy that, oh wow, I'm browsing incognito. There's no such thing called incognito. They know what you're browsing. That's number one. Second thing, a lot of, you know, what we use at Evolutives is, we use this whole thing called smart candidate screening process. When I call candidates for interview, our team kind of uses a quick smart app. It's a secret, probably we can discuss off stage, that tells you, will this person fit this role based on his browsing patterns, his Instagram, his Facebook, his you know, mail accounts, right? And we were wanting to hire this phenomenal kick-ass .NET architect for a very prestigious client. But the problem was, this dude was so obsessed with Deepika Padukone. I mean, we saw him browsing her pictures, you know, reading blogs, and this was like 8-10 times in a week. The whole reason we had to drop was because we knew he is great in whatever he does, but there is also a dark side which is, you know, not very publicly known. I mean, it was hard to give out why we are not considering it, but there is always. We'll take this off stage. But yeah, I mean, there are I mean, I'm sure most of you here, like ma'am said, know about these apps, right? You want to know about a user, you download, you put 5 user credentials, you put his Facebook, Twitter, Insta, Gmail ID, it'll give you the whole thing, right? It'll tell you, hey, 3:30 p.m. this person was in Marriott 3rd floor, right? And there is no hiding from it. So the amount of good digital transformation is doing, there's also a larger, darker side to it.
So there is a blessing in disguise.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, and I'll have to be very careful while applying for a job in your company. All right, I'll just open up the floor for questions from your side. In the audience, if anybody has any questions, we can take those up. We have still 10 more minutes to go. Yeah, anyone?
We need questions so that we know that you heard what we said, and you also know that what we don't know. So we want to know what you know.
If anybody needs a coffee, we can also order that.
So if I can ask various people, no? Anybody, show raise of hand, anybody from BPO here? BPO, okay. Other than RL. Okay. Sir, can you just stand and tell me, have you implemented any digital technologies in your company?
Somebody. They may need mic.
You can come over and you can share your experiences. You know, what did you do, how did you do, and was it successful?
Technology as in may include practices as well?
Yes.
Transformation. Yeah, so we do reporting on Excel, and we have transformed that to Power BI. And when you do it in Power BI, you can actually do, you can have your data on a OneDrive or a shared drive. But to go to the next level, you can have this data which can also be unstructured, right? You can take it to another platform where you may have different sorts of unstructured data. Maybe you call it something like a data lake, and then you kind of make the data structured and then make sure that your reporting is more seamless and it's related. So that's one of the, so it's like multiple technologies. It includes your API, it includes your data, your big data concepts, and also I think that was one transformation that we did in our process.
So was it done to make your job easy, or there was a business objective?
Both. There is a productivity impact. The accuracy is also
speed of okay.
Right, yeah.
Okay, anybody else?
Thank you.
RL, you can take it also.
So he is part of my team. So I would only be repeating what he said.
So ask us some questions. Huh?
So the only way, I was very curious when both Raghav and Kamlesh were saying, is there any which way that I can actually stay away from this entire data spy that I'm on, apart from living in the Amazon forest?
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah. No,
Well, I think,
Himalayas now border, everything is there.
RL, we will possibly, Raghav will answer that. I just wanted to share a quick anecdote, and maybe, when you step out of this room, think about it. There's a very old and real life example. There was a company who used to manufacture drill bit. The drill bit is used to make holes, You must have seen a lot of people using it. And they had a market share of 70%. And their, CEO, MD, I don't know, I've read it somewhere, he stood up in the annual general body meeting and he said, I have a good news and I have a bad news to share. So people were very, curious to know, with 70% market share, he has a good news and a bad news. So obviously, what's the good news? Good news is that we are still holding 70% market share and we are the top manufacturer of drill bit. People said, okay, so what is the bad news? He said the bad news is, while the customers, what do you think customers are buying? They said their customers are buying our drill bit. He said, no, they are buying a tool to make a hole. So today the tool is drill bit, tomorrow the tool could be something else. So we might be out of the business in 2 to 3 years if we don't focus on getting the hole better, making that hole better rather than focusing on drill bit, right? And drill bit is not the only tool to make that hole, right? It could be anything else. So, the message is that I go back to my first point. For the entire digital imperative, it's extremely important that the objective always remains in the focus. While the technology is extremely important, no doubt about it, but the objective still has to be always in the focus. The outcomes are going to be important, right? And at the end of the day, the business stakeholders are going to evaluate on these aspects, right? So that's the thing I thought important to share, so that when you go out of this room, you take away this point, which is extremely important.
Sure. Thank you, Kamlesh. Just last question from our side, having a time check. Yeah, you want to ask something, sir?
Just some strategies as to how you cannot go into a stealth mode, but just how do you, some strategies as to, I know there are certain apps that don't even work if you don't say yes to it, photos, other stuff, but any strategies, because there are a lot of young crowd here to see, and
absolutely.
So, a lot of bad things for them.
It's a very important and a good question, right? And to answer, going back to RL's point and again connecting back here, till 2015, yes, it was possible. I could probably create my name as first name Sunny, last name Diol, Sunny Diol, living in Vizag, was okay. Google was fine with it. In 2015, Google made a rule that you need to sign up with your cell phone number and you get a Google code to it. Yeah. The reason they are doing is they're linking your mobile device and they know that your actual identity is that. And the moment you give your phone number and the first OTP sent, you're done. The tracking starts. So unfortunately, yeah, there's no hiding, there's no way around it. And just to answer these questions, right, both from a B2B and a B2C standpoint, it doesn't matter how many endpoint security softwares you install, or how many firewalls you have, how many great things you have, and feel yourself secure. There's no such way called secure. If you have to search something that you feel or think might land you in trouble, or you think is not right for your business or as an individual, every time you have this dilemma, the answer is always yes, it will land you in trouble, because there is no hiding out of it. So some of the workarounds, especially when we run this whole data security and data privacy programs both in US and here, we tell people that there are a lot of, again, theories which says there is a whole world in dark web and a lot of things can happen, but again, that part is also tracked and traced. Anything that will reveal your personal identity, anything that will compromise your company's security and safety and all of that, try not doing it in physical world. A lot of people make fun of the Indian, we know now we have GEM portal, but Indian tendering system, Indian methodology of evaluation on why do you do so much in paper, why can't we do it in data, why can't we do it online? The only reason is nothing is safe online. I'm not saying that a paper method is safe or taking a traditional route is any better, but at least you are reducing the number of chances and the number of risk factors, right? We were in the previous panel that was talking about ransomware and all of that. It's very easy to have the API exposure. It's very easy to give exposure to your network. When one external vendor or a supplier kind of does a connection, because doesn't matter how safe you say your tunnel is, doesn't matter how secure you say it is, the guys on the other side are equally or more smarter. So the only probable way to be more cautious and try to make sure that whatever is not necessary, then don't do it. That's the only way around. I don't have a credible solution, or there's no one software we install and we say we're all safe.
Just be safe.
Yes.
Yeah, I think, sir, ignorance is bliss. So if you don't know, that is fine, and we be happy. All right, having a time check. Just last thing from my side for all of us. So basically, while there is a pros and cons of everything, so just the same in the digital technologies as well. But how can the potential of these technologies can be leveraged, used, and combined with the Make India initiative from Make in India initiative from the government of India, how can we really, I was listening to the Honorable Minister in the morning, and I saw a lot of initiatives being taken, by the government to, really uplift the overall ecosystem around. So how do you see these technologies can be leveraged to, build that overall strength in the ecosystem, and we can, really, overall bring this growth to a next level here? So Hari, would you like to start with that? Yeah.
I don't know if I'll answer the question directly, but we returned to India about a year and a half ago after living in US for 2 years. But within those 2 years, a lot of things had changed. In the area where I live, I was trying to use Swiggy Instamart. The moment I placed an order, in 7 minutes, the doorbell rang. Right? Even if I had gone out to buy something, it will take me 15 minutes. Right? That's really made in India. Right? On my street, there used to be a lot of stores. Within a span of 4 kilometers, there are 4 dark stores. Have you heard of dark store? A dark store is where you can't go and buy, but your orders go and they get fulfilled. Right? Most of the restaurants in our street have become cloud kitchens. They don't have boards. Your Swiggy orders and Zomato orders go there and they cook and they deliver. Right? So I think a lot of this is amazing change that has happened in India. I think when my son came to visit us last holidays, he said, "You guys are so much forward." He lives in Los Angeles and he came to visit us. India has gone so far ahead in digital transformation. So a lot of things is credit to, I think, Atmanirbhar and Make in India. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a few points. It's a very big topic, Make in India, the government embracing technology. I think government of India, all the governments, and they have very well into this technology. They are embracing, they are adopting. You look at, I don't know much about, Andhra Pradesh and Vizag. I'm sure here also that must be happening. A lot of self-service portals have been created. Self-service portals, transformation of education system is being thought of. And whatever the technology we are talking about, AI, ML algorithms, AI of everything, IoT, all these things are being adopted by the government. And we all heard in the morning, IT minister and the team talked about the infrastructure being created, with proactively to empower, enable, encourage us to build technologies. I would say that we are on the right track, actually. It is not one side because they can only create an infrastructure. They can't implement solutions. It's for us to implement solutions and take it to fruition. And the privatization of a lot of government services will allow much better, flawless, I would say, system for the citizens. And as I said, there's a lot to talk, and let me have others to share.
Yeah, very quickly, democratize the use of digital transformation power across the board. So when you talk about Make in India, there are a lot of players going to come of all sizes. And for some, it could be an aspiration. But, this community out here, think about going beyond the present and how can you democratize the use by bringing all of them into one ecosystem. So the next thing would be, how do you collaborate? How do you make the entry barrier much lesser? And in a manner that it is more of a participative growth and not just focused on individual growth. Individual growth will come when you are part of the ecosystem where there is a participative growth and more collaboration. Very quickly, those who have used Ariba as a I2Pay solution, what they have done is they have created a beautiful network where all kinds of players on board and the entire P2P gets addressed in that network. Drawing analogy with that, create an ecosystem where everyone gets onboarded and there is a much more collaborative effort in terms of everyone trying to use the power of digital transformation, and then everyone goes back home very happy. Thank you.
But I think the last question intentionally was kept to be most impactful. I'm a huge fan of my country, and we're really proud of what we are as a nation, right? If you have, I'm sure all of you have seen videos. If you see this year Davos, India is like dominant, right? We are on the face. Whether it is any state pavilion, Invest India pavilion, we have the highest number of national delegates representing in Davos this year. Apart from my day job at Evolutis, I am also part of what we call as SaaS Stars India. SaaS Stars is basically investing in SaaS companies. While the whole world is talking about economic meltdown, the Indian startup ecosystem is talking about being $1 trillion SaaS economy in next 15 years. We are just 15 years away from being $1 trillion in large SaaS economy, right? And just coming back to that point on how can we as an ecosystem do something, it's all about personalization, right? Today, in the day and the world we are in, if you build a Vizag version of Ola, a Vizag version of Uber, a Vizag version of Night Pub Finder, a Vizag version of anything, trust me, it's going to take off. Because people would want super personalized experience on everything they do. And the SaaS community out there is, there to fund, help, scale, and do all of that. I don't literally mean just Ola, Uber, but I'm talking about any app that you can build. The advantage, the very, very unfair advantage we as India as a nation have is the huge population, right? And if every person is putting $1 on your app, in no time you kind of get to the unicorn status in terms of valuation. So the potential is unlimited. I think we are, as a country, Indians, we are spoiled with choices now, and it's only up to us on how we want to really make this whole digital transformation work for us for the betterment of society and country at large.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, speakers. Normally, the post-lunch session is supposed to be a little dull. Both the speakers and the, participants in general feel a little out of place. But our speakers have done such a fantastic job in this session that everybody is listening. Okay, what will happen next? How can I do this? Maybe I can avoid by taking their inputs. So it was a very nice session. Thanks to Mr. Shishupal Rathorji, Senior Vice President of Technology, Motilal Oswal Financial Services, Mr. Prashant MJ, Founder and CEO, Sugruha, Mr. Kamlesh Sinha, Practice Head, Business Redesign and Transformation, Vasutti Services, Mr. Hari Krishna Burle, Head of COEs and Solutions, Quest Global, Dr. Raghavendra Hunsangi, Chief Marketing Officer, Evolutis. I call Mr. R.L. Narayanagaru to give away the mementos to the speakers.
Thank you.
What did I say? Thank you to boss or thank you to previous colleague. Thank you so much. So, Kamlesh, thank you so much for those insights. Pleasure. Yes, sir, pleasure is mine. Great, thank you so much.
One.
Thanks all.